Good morning. This is Louis Yanis, WealthNet Investments. I hope you're having a good morning today. It is absolutely gorgeous this morning. I had a little bit of a challenge getting out today into the office, but I'm looking forward to today because clients are starting to want to come back into the office, which is a really good thing. One of the things that's been on my mind is a concept called groupthink. And I want to illustrate groupthink with a study that was done by psychologists. There was some psychologists that were out there that were concerned or really curious, I guess, about how does groupthink affect people's decision making and how influential are other people's opinions and wanting to be like everybody else. How much does that affect your decision-making process as a human being? And how are we hardwired? So, my wife gave me one of these today. There was a study that was very interesting. What happened was there was a kind of a classroom setting where there was a big group. And in that group, there was a single person that was not in on the study. But everybody else in the group was in on the study. And what they did was they had a kind of a board with 3 lines on it. 2 of them were clearly longer than the other lines, and then 1 line was clearly shorter. So 1 line was clearly short, and the other 2 lines were clearly long. And in this study, what they did was they had that one person who did not know that everybody else was going to say a lie. They had him answer the question, which one of these lines is shorter? So in the front of the room, they say, which one of these lines is shorter? And remember, 2 are clearly longer than the other. It's like obvious. And everybody in the room who was in on it said the long lines were shorter. The long lines were shorter. And this one person is going, and they answer that the long lines are shorter, even though it's absolutely obviously clear that the short line is a different line. And this happened over and over and over again. And there are many studies, by the way, that show that people will do crazy things if everybody else is doing it. And it's kind of because we're hardwired in a way where we don't want to stick out. We don't want to stick out like a sore thumb. I think that's happening a lot today. And people will tend to make decisions based on what they hear over and over and over again. It could be an outright lie and be said over and over and over again. But because of human nature and the strong desire to fit in, people will tend to say something that they know is wrong. In fact, there are words, ancient words that actually define this. And I don't remember the name. I wish I remembered the name. I should have wrote them down. But there's words that actually show or indicate when somebody is saying something that they know not to be true, and everybody in the room knows it's not to be true, but they say it anyway. What also brought this to mind was because actually my wife had a dream. And the dream, I won't get into all the details, but the dream was clearly about seeing something coming, not wanting to do it, but doing it anyway. Seeing something coming that you don't want to do, but doing it anyway. Have you ever been in a position like that where you are doing something that you don't want to do, and you know you don't want to do it, but you do it anyway? I think about people who are smokers who do that. That's more of an addiction, which I think is something different. But I feel like there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on today. There's a lot of false stuff that is being promoted, and it's in the market. I'm bringing this down to the investment world. There are certain assets that just because somebody famous likes it, or just because it's talked a lot about on the news, that there's this belief that it's true, that there's some economic value that is greater, much, much greater than it really is. This happens during bubbles, and you get this kind of false valuation. And I think that's happening with some of the assets in the economy, some of the cryptocurrencies. I think that's happening a lot in politics too, where either something is concealed, something that is true and obvious when you physically look at it, it's being concealed, therefore it doesn't exist. Or you obviously see something that's absolutely wrong, but yet people continue to go with it or even shut their mouth about it. In when you shut your mouth, you're basically condoning it. And I think that's a real problem. By the way, here's some coffee. I hope you have some. I needed a little bit of coffee. So I challenge you to think about what's real and to stand up for what you know is to be right, rather than being coerced, even though you're letting yourself being coerced, into believing or going along with something that you know not to be true, either because you want to fit in or because everybody else is doing. I'm actually seeing people worried about not being able to move up in their jobs if they don't take a certain political stance. Let me say that again. People are worried about moving up in their jobs or even keeping their jobs. I know I won't mention names or jobs or industries. I guess I can mention industries. In the publishing industry, I personally know people who are worried about losing their because of their political stance. I know people who are worried in the technology industry that they will not be able to move up. People that had clearly a different philosophy, and I've known for a long time, change their philosophy so they can fit in or they can move up in their job. This is morally and ethically wrong. Now, and ultimately those things are revealed, the things that are wrong are revealed in the end, and you will have repercussions. So it's the same thing in the markets right now. There are certain things that are not real, that are being proposed to be real, that will have repercussions. One case in point would be, hey, it's okay, we can print money. Let's just print money. It's going to be fine. If you're a study of economics, you know that you cannot do that. You will devalue your currency. It's not a free lunch. Somebody actually told me that there's no free lunch. I'm trying to remember who it was. But yeah, it had to do with something completely off topic, but it was like, yeah, there is no free lunch. That's just an analogy or a metaphor for the fact that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And so what's happening right now, we're starting to see that, for example, in the numbers with the employment. So if we keep writing checks, right, and it becomes more, if I'm going to make $50,000 a year, I had a client tell me this. He owns a business. He hires people. It's like, if somebody sits at home and they make $50,000 a year, they're not going to go back to work. So these types of things have repercussions, and maybe it leads to a uniform basic income thing. Now, if you believe that uniform basic income is not going to have repercussions, that's crazy. Okay. So I'm not saying one way or the other. I'm just saying that people need to understand what you're getting yourself into, whether it be with your personal finances, or whether it be with your politics. There is no free lunch. There's an equal and opposite reaction. So look at those lines, and if you clearly see a line that's shorter than those big long lines, state to everybody, don't be a wuss, state to everybody, that line is shorter. And in the end, when more people tell the truth about what line is shorter, others will be emboldened and encouraged to also say that line is shorter and speak the truth. That's all for now. I'm Louis Llanes with Wealth and Investments. Hope you have a great day.